The biggest breakthrough in your business will come from understanding just one word: fluency.
You don't say. If you're new here, welcome to the Useful Not Famous cult.
Hi.
I'm Amara.
I'm Jeff. You're just like deadpan me.
So, well, first, before we get into fluency, if you are listening to this episode, it tells me two things about you before we even get into anything. The first is that, I guess I should be talking to you and looking at the camera. But the first is that you are a motivated entrepreneur and you don't have a lot of time. The second thing is that you are ready for change. So how do you do that?
Well, yeah. So in this episode too,
Well.
or this podcast, for time, I just want to say real quick, it's a 15-minute show. We're here quick to get in and out, and to give you the why, a little bit of what, and then how to implement at the end.
And if somebody sent you this podcast episode, that also tells me that you have somebody who wants you to succeed and grow in your business, and they know that you can do it. You just need the right tools. So that's what we're here for, us tools. We're here to help you as part of the Useful Not Famous cult. So you said fluency at the beginning. What the hell does that even mean? What is fluency? Do you mean fluency in French, fluency in cooking? What is it?
So it's also
let's start
funny.
That timer.
I don't have the timer in front of me.
Oh my God.
Can you fill the air for like 30 seconds?
So typically in this show, how it's split up is we have 3 different parts and we have a trusty timer. So our cult is falling apart all of a sudden. Our God, the timer, is not here. So Jeff's grabbing the timer, but the podcast is split into 3 separate parts. So first is the what.
I'm here. There's the timer, 5 minutes.
So it's the what. Then we get into, the why. No, the first part
Yeah,
is
why, what, and how. But
yeah, first part is why. He always introduces this part. The first part is why. The next part is what, meaning what are we up to? And then the final part is how to actually implement this. So first, why fluency? Why are we talking about fluency?
Yeah, and we have 5 minutes on the clock, so here we go. Yeah, so fluency. Fluency, when we think about it, we think about language and language fluency. Like, I'm fluent in English. What are you fluent in?
Lady. I'm semi-fluent in a couple things.
Yeah, like English, and you have some fluency in like German. Like language fluency makes sense.
Yeah.
We think about that initially. But when we're actually creating something, we need to think about fluency in terms of how familiar is the thing we're creating so someone feels fluent in it.
So fluency equals familiarity, like how familiar you feel with something.
So it's definitely a part of it. I wouldn't say it's the whole kit and caboodle, but
Meow.
it's the familiarity. It's the fluency in that I see something and I understand it. I don't need to understand all of it, but I need to if I understand it a little bit, I will feel more of a connection to it instantly. So let me explain. If you are sort of our era of millennial or...
Excuse me.
Hey, we're millennials. We're just on different ends of the millennial
we
timeline.
Have a 10-year gap between us.
And our teeth. But I don't know.
That's what all dentists and orthodontists say.
So millennials and others know the band Paramore, for example. So they have a song called Misery Business. It did really well, very popular.
Side note, I always wanted Hayley Williams hair.
Sounds like a problem. Sounds like you want to just like go and cut her hair off and take it.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it in a plastic bag under my bed. Anyway, carry on.
So Paramore had a song called Misery Business. Very, very successful at the time. But that's not the song that we're talking about. We're talking about a song that used the fluency of Misery Business to sell itself and the artist. I don't even know what year I should have looked, but a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, Olivia Rodrigo made a song called Good For You. And immediately, it basically went viral everywhere because all of the millennials, everyone who grew up on Paramore felt compelled to be like, this is just Misery Business with different words.
Yeah, TikTok was brutal.
But this is the thing, though. It became very successful and arguably put that artist on the map. Like she may have had stuff before, but that's the song.
And also, there's a more current version of that, which is Anxiety by Doichi. And it's like an exact replica of Somebody That You Used to Know by Gautier.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same exact beats and everything, but like a little bit more like, I shouldn't have done that with my body. That was gross. Sorry if you saw that. But it's a little more, it's just more modern. It's like, it's more upbeat, I guess. Whereas obviously that song is very downer.
The catch though, that So Good For You is not a cover. Is the one you're saying a cover? So they're not covers at all.
But it's the same exact sound and you recognize it immediately, but you're like, whoa, this is different. So is that part of Fluency then?
That's what I wanted to say is our fluency in that song instantly gives us the inclination to like it if we liked the original. Or even if we didn't like it and it's just like, I swear I know this song. There was a Green Day album back in the day, like maybe, I think it was American Idiot, it might have been a different one, that the first time I listened, I remember thinking, I feel like I've heard like half of these songs before, but they went back to other familiar historical sort of songs, say, and pull just little bits that make you feel something. And that's what we want to do is we want to make people feel something. Ideally, the feeling we're going for, it could be anger, but ideally what we want is happiness or fulfillment or satisfaction or whatever it is. So using fluency to create something, whether it's art, whether it's social media, whether it's a podcast like this, whether it's something that you want a positive outcome from, no matter what it is, if you think in fluency, like how fluent is someone going to be in this, you're going to be much better off. And I just have one more example I wanted to say real quick, was Edge of Tomorrow. Time. There is a Tom Cruise movie called Edge of Tomorrow that I think is his greatest movie of all time. And it does have like a cult following and everything to it. It is a really good movie. But it completely flopped when it came out. Because the phrasing, the titling of it, Edge of Tomorrow, doesn't have any familiarity. It doesn't connect with the story really in any way whatsoever. So there isn't like a fluency in being able to talk about it. Like if at the time, if someone said, did you see Edge of Tomorrow? I'd be like, I don't think so. Because there was zero connection. And what you would look at is when they were trying to push the movie, when they were struggling, they took the phrase live, die, repeat, which was just sort of the tagline, and they gave it top billing. They put it huge on the poster. They did things to try to be like, we messed up. We went with the wrong title, but this is something people are saying and understand. But it was already too late. They weren't giving us the ability to be fluent in it. So we want to give people the fluency, the ability to share and understand to a degree with some questions at the end. Like, I understand this much, but I want to know more. That's a really important thing that can be leveraged.
And really quickly, I just wanted to ask, what's the opposite then of fluency? Just super briefly, what would be an example then of the exact opposite, which I would assume is called disfluency?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I would assume is called...
just using context clues.
No. Yeah, it would be disfluency. Let me think if I have like a good example.
So disfluency would be the opposite, which is not familiarity. So it's something very foreign and different and like so almost bizarrely different, and not as a negative, but just purely like, what is this?
I think a good example is actually someone who you meet who's from another country, who has a name that you don't even know exactly how to pronounce it from seeing it. You don't have a fluency in that person's sort of identity. And it makes it so much harder to be like, oh, did you meet... And it's almost like, did you meet Sally's friend? Because you don't know the person's name. You don't have a connection for it. And a lot of like everything that we do is connection. So there's a disfluency, which in a person's name, that's very unfortunate because like we all want to have our identity. But think in terms of a brand.
Yeah, my name, like it's...
What's your name again?
My name is familiar enough so it's Amara, People always think it's Amanda, which unfortunately that is my least favorite name out there. So I'm sorry if your name is Amanda. Nothing personal, but people have always thought my name is Amanda because you see the first part, AMA, and then the natural progression in the English language then is NDA. So I have a fluent name in a way where it's familiar, but there's also disfluency in it because then it's like, oh wait, raw? You end it in raw, not nda?
And how does Jagger say it?
Raw.
So we want to be fluent. We want to create things that give a sense of fluency to people. And I wanted to say with the name. Sorry, I forgot that. In terms of a brand, for example, like if your brand is hard to understand, like the brand name, like Nike, Coke, Pepsi, these are like easy. Like we understand that. But if you have some letters next to each other that in the English language don't really compute for the English market, you're going to struggle because they won't be able to actually convey that brand name.
100%. Okay, so now we'll move on to our what?
Our
what?
So you put 5 on the clock. So what is the what section?
The what is what have we been up to and what are we doing on this planet?
Yeah, and we follow this with the why. So stick around to the end.
Yes. So actually something
how,
that we're close enough. We're a little rusty. We had last week off because unplanned, honestly, to be fully honest. It's just life will catch up to you, and something that we talk about with people always is consistency. And we personally do struggle with that because it is very difficult. This podcast we film fresh every single week, which we could batch ahead of time, but we like to have topics in the moment where we've been reading something or digesting something because we're so much more passionate in the moment about what it is that we just learned, read, or we've just been thinking about. So,
and I just wanted to add one more thing, that this is also us practicing. So like this show, if we were to batch,
that's why it's a little discordant at times.
Discordant. But we're practicing this dialogue together and educating together because it's not something we've done. So if we did batch a month at a time, we would basically get 12 at bats. Now we get 52 or 50 if we miss a couple weeks, but 52 at bats every year now to improve this and figure out how this works on mic.
So the reason why we didn't record last week, so the last episode we had was in Miami. Then we went 24 hours later to LA to film with our top banana, Kevin. Then we left LA. 24 hours later, we went to an old mining town just outside Chicago because we live in Chicago. Super cute. We went there for your parents' 50th wedding anniversary. Wedding. I can't talk. Which was adorable. It was the cutest little town. So I've totally lost my train of thought. Oh, but what we are working on, though, ties into this perfectly. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on our project?
I'll let you go on because I'm not exactly sure what you're queuing up or how you're queuing it up.
Buzz.
No, I know that.
Well, something that we're working on is a product for people. So
Don't say the name.
Hiveway. Vampire. Just makes me think of Twilight. Say my name. Anyway, such a bad movie. Anyway, carry on.
Debatable.
Ugh, bad movie, bad book. And she lived in my area in Arizona, which
in
is
your Miami?
In Miami. But we're working on a product called Hiveway. It is a very complex product, what we started with versus what it is now. However,
it's evolved
tremendously.
Complex for us, easy for you.
Yes, so easy for the user, which is why it's even more complex for us because it's essentially step-by-step, no step skipped of a variety of content creation because we fly all over the country to work with small businesses and realtors in their market. And we have learned so incredibly much. Like we already knew a decent amount, and then it's just like further pushed to the envelope to the nth degree what we've actually learned. So there's so many different types of content that you can make, and it's very difficult and stressful to try to make it on your own. So we're trying to make it even better for people. And something about that, which is what we're talking about this week, is familiarity. Making the product feel so familiar to people that it doesn't feel scary. It doesn't feel like, what is this? Because for me, using, like, for example, for using Notion, which is, I still don't even know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's a note-taking app, like, super
But people
reductively.
love it.
I can't stand it. It's so different. There are way too many options. And, like, I love tech. Like, I find it really fascinating, and I can learn things, like, immediately. That is so overwhelming to me. I don't even want to touch it. Like, I have 80 other things that I'll use instead of it. So that's something that we're working on for Hiveway.
Well, and it's too, and just, I said people love Notion because there's a cult of Notion, basically.
Which I fully
and
admire, respect.
yeah, there's also a podcast that we have a friend who really likes it, and the podcast their tagline is "Give it a year," because people aren't fluent in it instantly, but like eventually you are, and then you're part of the little cult. Blah blah blah. Same thing with Notion. Notion takes it takes an investment, and then people really like it. But that is the anomaly. That's the exception, not the rule. You want, if we want to do things and not have an uphill battle with everything we do, we want it to be familiar. So what Hiveway is, and it's myhiveway.com, what Hiveway is in terms of familiarity on our end, like you just said, is like we want it to feel familiar when you use it. But then on the flip side, the product that we're helping you create,
Time.
and on the flip side, the product we're helping you create, your hyper-local organic content, we're giving you all the tactics that are working and packaging them up so it's familiar to the people you're creating for.
Exactly. Just to make it as easy as possible, not only for you as the person using the software, but also for the people who are partaking in your content. And it's been a lot of trial and error too with my own personal content, being like, okay, how does this exactly function? Because our whole philosophy too is you can't exactly, it's more helpful if you make the type of content or do something if you're trying to help with it or teach it. So I've been trying to do these other different types of content.
Can you say that one more time?
No, because I don't even know what I said. But it's like it's eating your own dog food. It's doing the exact thing that you're trying to teach people to do. And that's something that we've done forever historically. But making the types of content that we are going to be instructing people to do and how to do it even better, because you need to have a finer grasp of what it is that you're doing.
A
Familiarity?
Fluency.
Oh, that was a disfluency.
But a fluency in what you're creating because you have the
Exactly.
experience of doing it. So we're trying to condense our experience and hand it off in a way that feels familiar and
Exactly.
also helps you be familiar to others.
And because we are systems people through and through. So we love not only developing systems, but finding new systems, finding the best way to do something constantly improving things. So I don't know. That's just something we've been working on. And it's interesting then because we're trying to make Hiveway feel so familiar, just like you immediately know how to use it. Like an iPhone, any Apple product, you immediately know how to use it. That's why it's so successful. And that's why it feels good. And that's why so many people model their websites after like Apple, and like they have the whole 3 thing, because it's like with Starbucks, like you have your 3 options to choose from. Well, you're going to choose the middle one. So anyway, so that's just something that we've been working on, and I'm very excited for it, and the whole evolution. Dance
yeah.
evolution.
Evolution.
I know.
But yeah, more until more is too much, less until less is too little. That's what balance is. Actually, if you're watching, look over Amara's left shoulder, you'll see a fun new thing that I love that I'm going to do a video on soon, but it's all literal balance, but I want to use it as sort of a metaphor for balance.
If you're listening, it is a basically snowboard sized board, and it has
it's
slack
called
line
a
down the
gibboard.
middle.
It's a gibboard, and Gibbon makes slack lines, and this is a slackline board, so it's portable.
Literally a board with a slack line mounted on top of it, and it is very fun.
Yeah, we'll make a video on it soon. But let's queue up this last 5 minutes. We are on to the how. So how can someone listening create and be a more fluent product? I don't want to call a person a product, but sort of as a realtor, for example, they sort of are the product. They're selling themselves. They're not selling a house. They're selling why I'm the best person to buy or sell a house with.
So there are a few different ways you can go about this. One of the ways that we historically have used is doing personality-based content. So what does that mean? It's basically doing content to tell people about yourself. Granted, you do want to try to have what's in it for them in your content whenever you can. Granted, it's a little harder when it's supposed to be about yourself. However, make a story. Don't put you as the punchline, but make it maybe funny. And well, because like I always like putting myself as the punchline in stories because that's my thing. And I was gonna say that, but I was like, well, no, not everybody wants to be the punchline in their stories.
I was just thinking though, the punchline is literally just your name, like just the word Amara. And it's like, how is it always the punchline? Like a literal word.
Your stories
punchline?
Are terrible, and also Amara. But if you can make more personality-driven content, that is a great way to have people be more familiar with you, specifically in a storytelling aspect. So we all know stories. Storytelling has been around forever. It's why Disney was so successful. It's why you watch movies. It's why you watch TV shows. It's why you listen to anything and everything, because we all want to know more stories. Like that's what we learn best from. That's why mythology has existed and religions and everything. I'm not even going to touch that.
We want to know what happens next. That's sort of, I felt like that was the next little.
Yeah. It's your way to live your life. And it's like, okay, well now I want to know like, well, what did you learn from this? Like, that's why there are so many moralistic stories and things like that. Anyway, that's a whole other topic for another day, for another podcast. But having more personality related content, because then specifically talking for realtors or small business owners, whoever, because then people already feel like they know you. They know a little thing about you. So for example, something that I would always ask people are would you rathers. Like, would you rather live in a tent or live in a Subway, the restaurant, not an actual Subway, or whatever, an actual Subway. But that was never one that I would do. But it's like, well, which would you rather? Now you're sort of making a story, because then you go through the hypothetical, well, every day I would probably rather live in a tent because then I can live in the woods and I love camping and I love hiking with my family. You just introduced 2 or 3 different things that people now will know about you. And the person who you're going to be working with closely as their realtor, your client wants to know more about you before they even get to know you, because you are sharing who you are. And then one of the most difficult things when you meet somebody for the first time is, I know nothing about this person. Do I like them or do I hate them? Essentially, like that's kind of the human thing. It's like a survivalist instinct. You run through those different things. Exactly. So you're getting rid of that question in their head immediately, because it's like, oh, they love coffee. I love coffee. I always go to the coffee thing because I personally love coffee. It's like one of my favorite food groups. So that would be one thing that I would recommend.
And I would say it's a tactic.
Yes.
And
so what's a tactic versus what's the other option?
Strategy.
You
blinked for a second. You're like, oh. So a strategy is a collection of tactics. Like our strategy for Maven, our strategy for Useful Not Famous and Hiveway is the culmination of everything we're doing. Like our strategy actually encompasses all 3 of those: this podcast, Maven, and Hiveway. How we're approaching them is the strategy. But individual things that we're doing, such as personality content or scoops, which we'll explain scoops on a different episode, or we do out and about. We do all these different things. Those are all tactics. So the fluency in a tactic also helps. So doing the would you rather or underrated, overrated. Mm-hmm. These are things that people see. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking the wheel and polishing it up a little bit to make it our own. Like we're adjusting that wheel because we want people to be fluent in the topic. So I wanted to say one real quick. When it's
time.
Okay, bye. See you next week. No.
Thanks for listening to The Cult. Bye.
When it's something like the 5 best coffee shops in Miami, if you've spent any time on TikTok, you probably have an idea of what that video looks like already. Just me saying that, because it'll be either a still image or a little B-roll, like a little moving image that says 5 best coffee shops in Miami. And then it goes to a different image with the name of it. A different image. This is familiar. There's a fluency. People know what to expect. And it's storytelling, like you're saying, because it's a very, very loose story, but it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is a list of 5 things, but if I want to know whether or not this person is right or prove them wrong, I need to get all the way to the end of that story, that 5th item. So then I can be like, you're wrong, or exactly, like I love number 4. That's where I go.
Exactly. That's a very good point.
So yeah, so it's just the tactics. And this is what we're delivering in Hiveway, is a collection of tactics that are working, that we know are working, from making 4,000 videos last year, and delivering it so you can be fluent to the people that you're trying to reach. Or they can be fluent of what you're making.
And that was close.
That was a weird sentence.
That was almost English. It was reminiscent, but it wasn't quite there. It was familiar enough.
Uh-huh. Did you ever see that video where it's what English music sounds like to foreign
just what speaking. English sounds like to foreign people, and I was like,
who don't speak
does.
It was so weird.
But I was like,
look that up.
I can kind of hear what it is.
But there were no words.
There's a trend on TikTok
too.
too.
Real quick, it was the sounds. So it was a song and people dancing, but it was literally no English words, just English sounds.
Well, it's like or whatever. Like it. No, but
you know how we all sound when we talk.
Maybe you don't, but I do. But there was. Anyway, fuck it. Okay. So there was that. And then right now there's a trend on TikTok where it's a sound and it's dun 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 dun. And it sounds like a person speaking into that what the fuck is it? The T-Pain machine.
Auto-tune.
Yeah, where a T-Pain machine. You need to patent that.
But see, that's something.
When I think that sound, I think T-Pain.
Auto-tune has been around since modern digitally produced music. But it wasn't until T-Pain took it and made that his identity that everyone became fluent in that object, and he is the fluency that they related to.
See, there you go, another example. But there's a trend, and it's just the sound, like it's just a synth, but it sounds like somebody is speaking into the machine. And so people are doing voiceover things like I can't even think of an example, but it's like a moralistic thing where it's like, don't fucking do that, is like the gist of it for like whatever it is. So it's a strong stance on something, but it sounds like words. Anyway, that just made me think of it. Long rabbit hole. So before you stop listening to this episode, or before you are sending this to your friend who needs your business help, I have one more thing to recommend to you. And then you can go on your merry little way. But don't hit send just yet. Another thing you can do. What?
I was just picturing I just get up and walk away. You're like, don't go yet.
Wouldn't be the first time.
No.
I'm just kidding. It would be the first time. I'd be like, what the hell? I'd be so caught off guard. Another thing you can do is, so again, specifically talking to real estate professionals, just because that's who we work with, real estate agents, go find, using hashtags, go find 3 people on any platform of your choosing, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, whatever. Find using the real estate hashtag.
Which one?
Which one?
Which of those platforms? Which would you do?
I mean, I'm biased. I would do TikTok.
So like,
because that's always trendy.
That's what
Instagram
I mean.
to me is, no shade, but it's so far behind, and it's such a different platform. If you want to find in the moment things, like in the moment tactics, always go to TikTok. TikTok is 1,000 years ahead of any other platforms by far.
Perfect.
So use TikTok. Go to TikTok, look for specific hashtags. So do real estate, realtor, realtors of TikTok, and maybe a local one for wherever you live, whether you're city, state, whatever. Look at what people in your area are doing. Because a lot of times, if you see that there's a video that's quote unquote viral, not that that's the best metric. Actually, no, scrap that. Changing my mind in the moment. Find videos in your area of real estate agents doing really great videos. It might not have the most views. It might not have the most engagement, But if it's something that makes you stop and be like, fuck, that's a really good idea, do it. Do your own version. That's the beauty of especially TikTok, is do the same exact thing and it's going to work. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And like, I've been on TikTok for 5+ years and I did my own original content, but now I'm seeing you don't need to do original things. You can do the same thing that other people are doing because you have the fluency, the familiarity of the trend, but then your own little funny bent to it. And that's why these trends succeed so well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, fuck all the other social media. Go to TikTok. I've talked my way through this.
Yeah.
Go to TikTok, find your hashtags, remake one
True
of the
to
videos.
yourself.
Exactly. And again, it doesn't have to be the most viewed. It doesn't have to be the most shared, but something that you're just like, fuck, that's funny. Or fuck, I love that. Do it.
And I want to do one insider baseball thing. There's someone in the real estate space who almost does all skits. And we participated in one because he needed help. And little pull back the curtain, he had a skit that wasn't real estate, and he would look at a scene, be like, okay, I want to do this scene. I want to do that scene, because it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then it worked for him. And that's how this and we all are creative in our own different ways.
And we need to point out that person is targeting real estate agents.
For sure.
So there is a specific,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much
Well,
to
it
think
depends,
about with
what
this.
tactics you're using for what for whom, which we talked about on here a lot.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to say, like, we're all very creative in our own ways. But we can, especially the two of us, we can get caught up in we want to reinvent and create everything fully original because that's what's most satisfying. But we also know that this fluency matters. And when things are tested and proven, there's a reason that it's working. There's a reason that Olivia Rodrigo could instantly have a song that people not only are talking about, but a lot of people just loved. And that's what we want. And that's how we're actually, because this is, how did I start that this is the biggest breakthrough in your business? This is a shift for us that we're making as we speak. There's a little pivot in things, not dramatic, but we're looking at it differently. We're actually considering fluency now in a way where before we sort of spoke about it differently, but the word fluency has unlocked things in our minds, and that's why we wanted to share it with you when it is fresh, when it means the most to us.
And one final note. Also, all right, on that note, literally, one final note about this is when you find the video that you want to try to make, try to stick with that type of content for a while, because then you're telling people what to expect on your profile, which again is a form of fluency. So many people don't stick with one thing long enough, and that's kind of the problem is, well, if you're kind of going everywhere, people aren't going to know what to expect on your profile, which is something that I struggle with personally because I love history. My whole background's in history. I have degrees in history. I've taught history. Like, I love history. But now I have a new love of making really great content with people and for people and teaching them how to make their own content and feel confident in it. So I'm trying to blend the two together. And it's a weird fucking profile. I'm not going to lie. Because it's like, oh, well, you have all these history dorks. And then you also have these social media nerds. And it's like, okay, wait, what is going on here? So trying to parse that down and figure out what goes where is something too that we've been working on. So, and I am a self-proclaimed history dork and social media nerd. So that's why I can call my people what I want to call them. So it's just something that it's just interesting. So just trying to make your profile as familiar as possible. And that's something that we've been talking about with our friend Tori, is figuring things out. So anyway, that's all I got for this episode. The end.
Bye.
Final note.